Hi, I'm Steph Ward. My family and I have been a member of this congregation since about 2017. And when I think of our congregation, I think about all of the relationships that we've been blessed and honored to have bestowed upon us. Some of those relationships are friends, and some we're lucky enough to call family. My family and I commit to this congregation's growth and the prospect of what our future holds together.
We give.
We give in support of all the ways that this community celebrates and manifests love for each other.
Good morning, and welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church, a community of youth, adults, and children sharing the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Roger Upham. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a member of your board of directors. For all the children and youth here today, we warmly welcome you and your whole family. We invite you to explore our Soul Work Center, which is over here on the far wall, where you can explore different activities designed to help people of all ages actively engage in today's worship service. To share a request for today's meditation, please best place it in the chat box or add it to our meditation bowl, which is in the Soul Work Center before the opening hymn. Please gain consent before you put someone's full name in the bowl. As always, you are welcome to attend a small group conversation following the service, both on Zoom and in the Amazon alcove. Visit the social hall for a more informal time of community, cookies, and information about upcoming services. Many thanks to our featured musician, Mary Duncan, who is sharing Irish tunes as a nod to the recent celebration of St. Patrick's Day and the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Accords in Northern Ireland. Mary, thank you for sharing your gifts with us today. I would like to share with you what WBUUC means to Carol and me. We have been members of this church since 2008. My first challenging involvement here was leading a fantastic group of members in the year-long planning for the 2011 meeting of the Prairie Star District on War and Peace. It was attended by about 450 people. I have also spent many years in the kitchen working on Wednesday night dinners and other things in the kitchen. I urge everyone to think about what the church means to them and join us in pledging to the best of their ability.
I'm Reverend Roger, and my pronouns are he, him. Good morning, good to see you all here. I have some good news to report on the pledge drive. As of Thursday, we had just under $370,000 in pledges for our upcoming 23-24 year, with an average increase of 5%. That is a great start, and thank you to all those who sent in your pledge. And I have bad news to report, which is that we've heard from less than half of the households currently pledging. And so I go back to my message from a few weeks ago, which is, please get in your pledge card, please. Now we're on the cusp of the worst part of the pledge campaign, which is where a bunch of volunteers and staff have to follow up with everybody who procrastinated. And I am a procrastinator, I get it. But it feels like just to me, honestly, a colossal waste of time, because all we need is to hear from you. Whatever your decision is, it's a personal decision, just let us know, and it will save a member or staff some time trying to track you down. So you can pledge online very easily. You can, if you got the card when in the mail earlier this month, you can mail that in. You could even go out after the service in the lobby where there's a table and take care of it then, so that when you walk out this door, you know, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So any of those options, I hope you'll avail yourselves of. If you're newer to the congregation and haven't pledged before, but feel like you'd like to, any amount's welcome. The main thing for me is for folks to do what feels meaningful to them. For me, it's really great to spend some of my money investing in an organization that supports me and helps build a better world. Feels like that puts my money into good action. So that's the invitation. I hope that is enough said. All right. I am delighted this morning to have preaching in our service Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Susan is the first woman to be elected to this position. She's near the end of her term. It has been a landmark term. Her impact will go on for generations. She'll be remembered, I think, as one of the best presidents our association has had. Over half of her term will have been while the pandemic is going, which presented enormous challenges, of course, to every organization. She's navigated that really well. I think you'll feel in the sermon energy and excitement and optimism. And I've known some other past UUA presidents who have not ended with energy, enthusiasm, and optimism. Sometimes it's a hard job. It's been a joy as a friend of hers to see her shine, thrive, and lead with such grace and inspiration. So it's a delight to have her here. We have the opportunity, and she'll get into this a little bit occasionally, to have preachers here who can only be here virtually, and that's the case with Susan. We had that last year with Ted Gallardo, who joined us, the president of the UU Church of the Philippines. And it's a new world we're in. It's a good world in its different way. And I appreciate that Susan's had a lot lower carbon footprint than her predecessors because of this gift of video. And so she will be with us, and we will now hear a greeting from Susan.
Hello, White Bear UU Church. I'm Susan Frederick Gray, president of your Unitarian Universalist Association, and it is my pleasure to join you virtually in this way on this Sunday. And I bring you greetings from everyone at your Unitarian Universalist Association and on behalf of over 1,000 congregations, your siblings in covenant and partnership with you. I am so grateful for the ministry that each of you, all of your members and leaders at White Bear offer. I want to, share my gratitude and admiration for your interim minister, the Reverend Roger Birchhausen, and for all of your amazing ministry team, staff members, and for everyone that's a part of your community. These last several years, as you well know, have and continue to be full of challenges and change in our world and our congregations. I've come to call these times liminal times. Liminal means a time in between, when what has been is no longer and what is next has not yet come to be. We are in this time of uncertainty. We continue to live in uncertainty. And in times of uncertainty, there's always this risk that fear will dominate and cause us to cling tightly to what has been, to what we've known. But these transitional times, I believe, are fundamentally one of the most important opportunities for possibility, for reimagination, for welcoming new changes, good changes in our lives. This means being able to let go. Fundamentally, in these transition times, letting go is core to letting new things emerge. And all of you at White Bear, you are in this transition time, not just as our world changes, as we continue to live through the COVID-19 pandemic, but also in this interim time when you are both grieving the change and loss of your previous minister through her retirement, and also as you are imagining what comes next, imagining, but in a time where that is not clear yet. And I hope that this service, the sermon that I offer, speaks to you in these transition times and in these liminal times, and that you remember the importance of learning to let go and hold things more loosely in times of change, as well as leaning in more deeply to care for each other and care for your broader community. Leaning into care and mission is so critical in times where there is lots of change. I thank you, each and every one of you, for your commitment to your congregation. Your congregation matters, and your ministry is needed in your community. And I thank you for your commitment to our wider Unitarian Universalist faith, to the partnership and covenant that all of our congregations make to each other to support a UUA that provides resources, care, interim ministry, and so many other supports so that all of our congregations across our UUA can thrive and be places of relevant life-saving ministry in these important times. I send you my love and my blessings and my deep care. And again, it is my great joy to be able to join you in worship in this way on this day. Blessings to you all.
Welcome to this church. Together, we grow our souls and serve the world. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anybody other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place.
Good morning. My name is Jordan Blair Palladino, and I use he, him pronouns. I moved here from Southern California in 2011 to attend the University of Minnesota. I didn't have any family here, and I didn't have any friends here. In fact, I'd never seen snow before I showed up here. What I did have was a desire for a fresh start and to reinvent myself, a new version of me, divorced from the context and baggage of my past life and finally ready to grow in every direction at once. Seeking belonging and a place to start, I joined a fraternity my freshman year, a group of young men committed to academics, social service, and personal growth. I know what you're thinking, but I'm completely serious. We could have had a bit more fun, but we did all right. I met my wife there, so joining was really one of the best things to ever happen to me. And living with and helping to lead 80 of your best friends teaches you a lot about personal relationships, about hard conversations, and about living your values. And with that learning comes a lot of the growth that I was looking for. I didn't remake myself into a different person entirely, but I became who I thought I wanted to be, somebody who could be everything to everyone, collecting friendships and connections as broadly as possible. And these relationships gave me joy and purpose for a while, But after graduation, without the crutch of shared experience and physical proximity, the stress of trying to make it in the world tested them, and they began to wither away. Every single one of them failed on the spot, and it was terrifying. I was quickly losing everything that I had spent the last few years building up. However, over time, a few of those relationships would bend, but refuse to break under the strain of our new environment. They were reinforced intentionally rather than by chance, and soon, without the weight of trying to maintain relationships with people that didn't really know me, only knew an idea of me, I was finally able to find myself again. With the support of true friends and true love, my roots to this beautiful place, snow and all, began to grow deep and take hold. And in letting go, I had finally found that new version of myself in what remained. And it was everything that I could have hoped for over a decade ago. Today, we light the chalice for the people in our lives who form our deepest connections. They can make any place feel like home.
And I invite you to join in the unison opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Spirit of Life is one of my favorite hymns, and I've had the joy of singing this hymn in several different languages. In Kasi, the language of most Unitarians in Northeast India, in Hungarian, in Transylvania and Hungary, in English, in not only the United States, but the UK and the Philippines, and in a version of sign language. In actually most of these places, I have taught this here and there. So what I'm going to do in a minute is show you signs that I have learned. This is not American Sign Language. This is a more artistic rendering. It actually comes from the Reverend Tony Larson in the UU Church in Racine, Wisconsin, longtime minister there, who worked very closely with Ellen Schmidt, who was the director of religious education there. I learned these from Tony like in 1990, and they've kind of stuck, at least as best as I can remember them. Ellen may correct me. But let me show you, and then we'll give that a try and then sing it. So I'm going to talk about the signs because they do tell an artistic story. The sign for spirit looks like this. So often smoke or that sort of fuel you can't really see when a candle's burning is a sign of spirit, this thing that we can't really see. Spirit of life, so sort of the life force within, come unto me. Sing, which looks to me like you're directing a choir, sing. In, and this is in the song a lot, so if you want to learn one sign, this is it. In the, let's see, sing in my heart, and then I just draw a heart around my heart. All, so that's all, everybody, and then stirrings of compassion, a little hard to do, so we do it like a sign of peace and compassion that Jesus or the Buddha would give. Blow looks like you're blowing. In the wind, looks like wind, right? So let's see, blow in the wind. Rise in the sea, looks like waves, a boat going over waves. Move, so you move something. Move in the hand. Giving looks like this, which, wait, that looks like receiving. When we give, we receive. Giving, life again. Shape of justice looks like the scales of justice. Roots, looks like roots going in the ground. Roots, hold me close. Wings, looks like a W on your shoulder. Wings, wings like that. Set me free, looks like you're handcuffed and freed. Spirit of life, come to me come to me. So what we're going to do is we are going to sing this by signing for the first time. So no words, no spoken words, no singing. Mary's going to play. We'll give it a whirl while we remain seated so you can maybe have a better shot at seeing me. This is an invitation, so no one's going to be perfect, including me. It kind of clips along. And you don't have to do this, but I hope a lot of you will. Then we'll all rise in body or in spirit and join a final time, both singing and signing for those who wish to do that. Okay, so first time through, stay seated, signs only.
My name is Nico, and my pronouns are they, them. One of the many magical things about stories is that they come to us from across space and time to deliver a message that is perhaps exactly what we need in this place and time. This morning's story, The Tale of the Sands, is a Sufi tale coming to us today, adapted from a telling by Idris Shah in his book, Tales of the Dervishes. There was once a stream that, from its source in far-off mountains, passed through every kind and description of countryside. It flowed around villages and fields and forests, its waters effortlessly passing over roots and rocks all along the way. For many years, the stream flowed steadily and happily until one day, the stream had at last come upon the sands of a desert. The stream tried and tried to cross the sand just as it had crossed every other barrier, but it found that each time it ran into the sand, its waters just disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross that desert, and yet there seemed to be no way. Suddenly, a hidden voice coming from the desert itself whispered, "The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." The stream answered the voice by insisting that it really was trying its hardest, dashing itself against the sand only to be absorbed. "It wasn't fair," said the stream. "The wind could fly, and this is why it could cross the desert." "By pushing forward in your own accustomed way, you cannot get across," replied the voice of the desert. "You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination." "But how could this happen?" asked the stream. "By allowing yourself to be absorbed in the wind," said the voice. Well, this idea was not acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality. And having once lost it, how was one to know that it could ever be regained? "The wind," said the sand, "performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and then lets it fall again. Falling as rain, the water again becomes a river. How can I know that this is true? The stream was worried. It is so. You must trust the wind, otherwise you cannot become more than a quagmire. And even that would take many, many years, and it certainly is not the same as a stream, said the voice. Can I not just remain as I am today? Begged the stream. You cannot in either case remain so, the whisper said. Your essential part is carried away and forms a stream again. Your essence remains, but you are changed. When the stream heard this, echoes began to arrive in its thoughts. Dimly, the stream remembered a time when it, or some part of it, had been held in the arms of a wind. The stream also remembered that this was the necessary thing, but maybe not the easy thing to do. And so the stream released its vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily carried it upward and along, letting it fall softly as soon as they reached the peak of a mountain many miles away. And because the stream had its doubts, the stream was able to remember and record more strongly in its mind the details of the experience. The stream was learning. But the sands whispered, "We know, because we see it happen day after day, because we, the sands, extend from the riverside all the way to the mountain." And that is why it is said, "The way in which the stream of life continues on its journey is written in the sands." It is now time to sing our children and youth out to their classes. So please rise in body or in spirit for Go Lift It Up, number 1057 in the teal paperback hymnal.
This congregation is sustained by the generosity of the people who call this place home. By giving this morning's offering, you are giving to the life, programs, and services that help form and grow this community. In addition to putting a contribution in our collection basket in a moment, you can also donate on the WBUUC webpage, send a check or leave a check in the lockbox outside the front office, or use the text to give option in your order of service or in the Zoom chat box. Thank you for your generosity and for your faith in this life we live together.
Let's share a few moments of prayer and meditation, gathered as we are here, about 70 or 80 in the room and 40 households on Zoom. Find a comfortable seat right where you are, feeling connected to the earth and to those around you. Take 2 deep breaths in and out, noticing the spirit of life and love swirling all around us, the spirit of mystery and wonder within us and beyond us. As the seasons turn, we feel within us the bud of hope, the promise of new life, as the snow and cold slowly release their grip. As we navigate through the final days of winter's uncertainty, we remember that the days get longer and life returns again. Warmth returns, our shoulders relax away from our ears. If we stay attuned, we can notice the changes happening all around us, and we cherish them. Within us all, there is a combination of joys and sorrows, fears and hopes, passions, pains, memories, and resilience. Some of us are struggling with addiction. Some of us are healing from wounds, both physical and emotional. Some of us are celebrating a new birth, a new friendship, a new opportunity, while others of us are experiencing a loss. We are grieving, and sometimes what accompanies that grief needs processing. Whatever we are holding and whatever our neighbor is holding, may we hold it all with tenderness and grace. This morning, this congregation is holding in light and in love Jill Waterhouse, who sustained an injury that has been keeping her from work. We pray for continued healing and recovery. Sue Dahlman, who lost her brother this past week. We pray for comfort and consolation as she grieves this loss. Brian's mom, who was recently diagnosed with cancer. Prayers for mom, dad, Tanya, and SBS community. Prayers for Salima and Nancy, both dealing with diagnoses of metastatic cancer. And now, in the stillness and silence of this moment, we speak out loud the names of those that you are holding in light and love. Knowing that together we are more able to hold it all. Make it so. Amen. Our reading this morning is from Jessica York.
I'm Jessica York, your Director of Congregational Life at the Unitarian Universalist Association, here in my home in Birmingham, Alabama, the land of the Muskogee Creek people. Do you know how sometimes you will read or hear or experience a quote or a saying that just seems to stick with you? You carry it around with you in your mind, thinking, I wonder if there's a message here for me. Well, someone recently shared a quote with me that has been sitting in my head ever since. It's from J.R.R. Tolkien's Fellowship of the Ring. Now, the original quote includes ableist language, so I'm going to share the original quote to honor his words, and then I will adapt it. Here is the original quote. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out of your door. You step into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there is no knowing where you might be swept off to. Another way of saying that is, it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out of your door. You move into the road, and if you don't stay grounded, there is no knowing where you may be swept off to. For those of you who may not be big Tolkien fans, Frodo is a hobbit. And in Tolkien's world, hobbits are beings that like to stay close to home with the comfortable and the familiar. The thought of being swept off to who knows where is pretty terrifying to most hobbits. It can be pretty terrifying to us humans too. Change can be hard, even when it is welcome. And we are living in a time of great change. We don't know where all this will take us. We cannot know. But we do know that we need to open our door and move into the road. Life calls us forth from what may be our comfortable familiarity. There is just too much work needing to be done for us not to engage with the world, dangerous as it may be. And so we do. We open our door and we venture out into the road, but we don't need to go alone. We have the means to stay grounded no matter how the wind blows. Your congregational life staff is one of those resources. Covenant is another. Covenant is something that is integral to Unitarian Universalist faith. The covenant that you make with each other to stay in faithful relationship in your congregation or your Unitarian Universalist community is one of those covenants. And the covenant that you make with your partner congregations in the association is another. During the pandemic, we have recognized how our covenants can give us a firm foundation to move forward together into whatever the future brings, wherever the wind blows. It is what calls us to come together in worship as we celebrate that which is of worth, both the old and the new. May it be so.
Hello, Unitarian Universalists. I'm Susan Frederick Gray, president of your Unitarian Universalist Association, and it is my joy to be with you today. One of the gifts of these pandemic times has been the ways we have grown in our capacity to connect across congregations and across our association. Over 5 years ago, when I was elected president of the UUA, I knew there was no way I could visit every UU congregation as much as I would have liked to have done so. And yet through technology and being able to offer a message that any and all of our congregations can use, I am grateful to be able to connect in this way and share with you some of what I witness from my vantage point as I pay attention to our association as a whole and the dynamics of our changing world. For more than a year now, I have been talking about these times we are living in as liminal times. Liminal means a time in between, when what has been is no longer and what is ahead is still unclear. The pandemic upended so much of our lives. And yet what is next is still unfolding, still being imagined. I know that many of us are no strangers to this experience, and that for many of our congregations, we are experiencing layers of liminality, layers of transitions. I can relate as I finish my last year as your UUA president, and the UUA prepares to welcome our next president. The UUA president will be elected by delegates from our congregations this coming June at our General Assembly online and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I hope you will send your delegates. In addition to all of our own personal transitions, a number of our congregations are in various modes of change. Many are in ministerial search or hiring processes for other staff. Others are in their first year of welcoming new staff. You know, across our congregations, we are seeing a lot of staff transition and a shortage of interim ministers. Like a lot of caring professions, we have seen religious professionals leave their work, needing a break after what has been a grueling few years of both pastoral, prophetic, and technological demands. It has all been so much. It could be said that we're all learning to live and adapt in the in-between. We know from these last several years, both the challenge and the losses, as well as the creativity and possibility of these transitional times. And the lessons from these times are crucial to bring forward because in truth, there is still so much change happening and needed within and around all of us. This is certainly true in our congregations where the ways in which people connect to religious community have broadened and shifted and new patterns are still developing. And it's true in our country where we continue to witness systems and practices break down with devastating impacts. From healthcare and infrastructure to basic goods and services to the economy to democracy, our system has shown tremendous weaknesses that impact the vulnerable most acutely. Human and civil rights are being rolled back at an alarming rate, and these fissures overall reflect a society that has put profit and power over people's lives. Now, in times of change and disruption, there is always a risk that fear and anxiety will dominate and lead people to cling more tightly to what has been, to a status quo that has never served the cause of human need, nor the values of justice and equity. But here's the thing. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are a people of faith. We are a people of hope and imagination. And I witness this in so many places across our faith, from congregations that continue to partner and share resources, to the energy and volunteers of UU the Vote, to our congregations, boldly sacrificing to support people in accessing reproductive care. And to all of our congregations celebrating and being a loving community for trans and non-binary children and youth and their families. And so, when so much is uncertain, it matters that we lean in even more to what we know to be true. The life-saving message of our theology and the life-affirming practices of the beloved community. So there is this wonderful parable from the late Denon Perry, a writer and humanitarian, that uses the metaphor of a trapeze artist to describe the experience of living in transition times. This is from the parable of the trapeze from Perry's book, Warriors of the Heart. He writes, most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have that feeling that I am in control of my life. But every once in a while, I see another trapeze bar swinging toward me. Each time it happens, I pray that I won't have to let go of my old bar completely before I grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on the old bar and for some moment in time must hurtle across space before I can grab on to the new bar. Each time, I'm filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of unknowing, I have always made it. Still, each time I'm afraid that I will miss. I do it anyway. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy, but you do it anyway because somehow to keep hanging on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. So for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar through the void of the past is gone, the future is not yet. It's called transition, and I've come to believe that this transition is the only place that real change occurs. And I mean real change, not the pseudo change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get pushed. What a powerful metaphor that is about our lives today. And a reminder that real change, needed change is possible, perhaps only possible in these transition times. Now, there's a few nuggets of wisdom in this story to really draw out. First, as Perry says, as much as we want to stay holding on to our current bar, it just doesn't work that way. We have to totally release our grasp on the old to make way for the new. And this is not easy. I want to be clear, for in times of change, there's a real tension between longing for what was, what we knew was stable, familiar, and meaningful, even if it was not that for everybody. And the opportunity to imagine something new, new forms, new practices, new possibilities in our lives and community. This is so relevant for our congregations today. The pandemic completely changed so much of congregational life and how we gather. And as we navigate what comes next, there's a real tension within many of our communities. Some of us know we can't go back. We know we need something different, and we're ready and excited for that future. But we can also have anxiety and a desperate desire to know for sure what comes next. We want that certainty, whereas others long for what was, because we are all often attached to what has been familiar to us in our past. And so many people want that familiar congregational experience again. But the truth is both of these are seeking attachment when we are in the midst of transition. And being able to stay in the transition, growing more comfortable with being in that void and uncertainty is the place where growth really happens. And this means experimentation and creativity. And this can be challenging because we want to know what comes next before letting go of what we have always done. But we can spend all our time trying to answer questions we don't have answers to. We can just go for it and start experimenting with living our theology in ways that give us courage and resilience today. And this means bringing creativity and generosity and care to the children and youth and families that are so in need because of this pandemic. And it means courage to answer the call to fully live in active solidarity with those who know how much is on the line and working to bring about more justice, equity, and compassion to fruition. Because here's the other gem in the parable. When the trapeze artist lets go of the bar, they do not free fall. There is momentum carrying them as it carries us all. And it's that fear of free fall that can keep us clinging to something that no longer works. But our connection, our shared history, our ancestors, our songs and readings and poetry, our spiritual imagination, all of these are momentum that propel us forward. We give each other courage. And the truth is, we are not swinging on these bars alone. We are together in this moment. And we will make mistakes and we will learn from them and we will learn to love again if we are willing to take a leap of faith. I want to acknowledge how embodied this metaphor of the trapeze artist is. But remember disabled acrobats and blind aerialists whose art and athleticism carries the same metaphors. There are many words I could use to describe the momentum that keeps propelling us in these liminal times. Calling, mission, whatever it is that acts as a beacon that calls us forward, calls us towards what is most treasured in our faith, that calling of the beloved community. And when I speak of beloved community, I mean the description that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. offers about a community that practices an all-inclusive, overflowing love that supports everyone's thriving, and a love that cannot tolerate injustice, exploitation, discrimination, and poverty because of the damage these things do to human thriving. Denon Perry ends his parable with one final lesson. He writes, I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid the void where the real change, the real growth occurs for us. Yes, with all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can, but not necessarily accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, most growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. Transforming our need to grab that new bar, it can be terrifying. It can also be enlightening in the true sense of the word. Hurtling through the void, we may just learn how to fly. Oh, I love that ending from Perry. And I want to use it to end with a charge for all of us. Yes, we have been in a time of change and uncertainty for years now. So many bars on which we relied just disappeared. And many of us know the deep pain of being forced into a transition that we never wanted. Naturally, within all of us, we want to get to that next bar, to be settled, to have the pandemic over, to have this transition time done, to be through the grief. However, as much as we all want to find that solidity, may we remember that as Perry offers, the bars are the illusion, and that transition is the only real time, and it's the most alive and growth-filled space. And in that liminality, in that in-between, we may just learn to fly. Because in this world that is indeed at a threshold moment, we need religious communities that are living actively in this in-between time, willing to remain unsettled because so much is unsettled. Communities leaning into and reimagining what prophetic, life-saving, and justice-making ministry and community can be. Communities practicing a generosity of spirit, a generosity of care and belonging, of mutual support, to support one another in love in these times, and knowing faithfully that our values, our spiritual imagination, our interdependence will carry all of us forward. May it be so. And I want to just end with a prayer. Spirit of life, we are mindful of all those who came before us. We are mindful and committed to all those who will come after us. Love, hold us fast to what is best and deepest in us. Hold us close to one another and to all that is our life. And may we keep true to all that calls us forward in love and in liberation. Blessed be. And amen.
Our closing hymn today is number 345. With joy, we claim the light in the larger gray hymnal. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, wherever you are, and join in singing.
Please join me in the closing words. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our will and love of truth forever guide us.